Here's the media basically getting on board this Biden lie train.
Rolling back voter rights, the Republican push in more than 40 states to limit voting access.
These are the kind of people who would pass a law to keep Jesus from getting a cup of water while he's dying on the cross.
Should we make it harder to vote based on lies, or should we make it easier to vote so that more people can participate?
This big lie from last fall, promoted by pro-Trump propaganda networks, is now the cover, is now the excuse for these attempts at voter suppression.
We're watching the big lie turn into voter suppression before our very eyes.
How do you at the DNC plan to contend with the voter suppression efforts that we're now seeing across the country?
States across the country race to enact laws to suppress voting.
Is this all voter suppression in action?
Extraordinary surge of voter suppression laws.
There's a huge wave of new voter suppression efforts.
Republican voter suppression efforts.
Massive voter suppression.
Sweeping new voter suppression law in Georgia.
Georgia's Jim Crow voter suppression law.
The broadest attempt to make it more difficult for Americans to vote since the Jim Crow era, before the Voting Rights Act.
What is obviously a racist policy of trying to suppress the votes of non-white voters.
Amazing. And by the way, Black voters who have not been suppressed by voter IDs, why should they be? They can get an ID just like anybody else. They also support laws for voter ID. So this is ridiculous, right? It is a ridiculous attempt. And of course, it's being echoed by social media, which has banned. I mean, this is an amazing thing. An amazing thing is that social media has banned the former not Twitter, not Facebook, but all social media has banned the former president of the United States from speaking at all, a guy that 75 million people voted for. And right-wingers are saying, well, they're private enterprises, so they're allowed to do that. No, when Instagram and Google and YouTube and Twitter and Facebook and Amazon, some of whom are owned by the same people and all of whom are colluding, silence the former president of the United States for whom 75 million people voted, that is gutting our free speech rights. And the amazing thing about this is the people who whined like little children that Donald Trump, by criticizing them, was violating their rights, who whine every time they're attacked for lying, which is what they do. They themselves are now the supporters of banning speech. Here is Lester Holt of NBC winning an Edward R. Murrow Award, saying something that Edward R. Murrow would have fallen down dead before he ever said. This is cut 19.
I think it's become clearer that fairness is overrated. Well, before you run off and tweet that headline, let me explain a bit. The idea that we should always give two sides equal weight and merit does not reflect the world we find ourselves in. That the sun sets in the west is a fact. Any contrary view does not deserve our time or attention. Providing an open platform for misinformation, for anyone to come say whatever they want, especially when issues of public health and safety are at stake, can be quite dangerous.
We don't want to have that both sides thing going on. And, what's dangerous, of course, about this is that who decides where the truth lies, especially when you've got things like climate panic. Now, I'm not going to tell you that there's no climate change. I'm not going to tell you that man's actions don't affect the climate. I am going to tell you that the panicky, disaster scenarios that people like AOC promote are largely untrue, are largely not science, but that all of it is a computer model of what will happen in the future. And there is no science for telling the future of non-patterned events. In other words, you can tell when an eclipse is going to happen because that's part of a pattern, but you can't tell when random systems that are too big for any person to actually understand, like the climate, you can't tell where those are going. So the climate models, the computer models, could be totally wrong, and anybody who wants to say they're totally wrong should be able to speak. The same thing with vaccines. If you lie about the fact that some vaccines have bad results just because you think that that's going to get the public to take vaccines, you're really doing the wrong thing, because what you're doing is you're making public health officials unreliable. So now these people go and they start to intimidate what they now call woke capital, which is corporations who find that it is easier for them to get on board this train than to stand up to the Democrats and the left and the media and all these powerful enterprises. It used to be the corporations thought, well, the best thing we can do is just keep our heads down. But now they think, no, we've got to get on this woke train. So Delta Airlines, I think American Airlines, Coke, Coca-Cola are all saying, oh, yeah, we've got to oppose this. Now, some of these companies, Tim Cook of Apple says this. Tim Cook had slaves in China building his iPhones so he could sell cheaper phones to unemployed Americans. But he's saying, oh, we've got to boycott Georgia. China's fine, but not Georgia. Here's James Quincy, of the CEO of Coke, getting on board the woke train. It's cut 4.
Let me be crystal clear and unequivocal. This legislation is unacceptable. It is a step backwards, and it does not promote principles we have stood for in Georgia around broad access to voting, around voter convenience, about ensuring election integrity. And this is frankly just a step backwards. We've spent many decades promoting within Georgia a better society and a better environment for business, and this is a step backwards. And we're very clear on that, and our position remains the same. This legislation is wrong and needs to be remedied, and we will continue to advocate for it, both in private and now even more clearly in public.
So I just want to point out here that all the power is on the side of the woke. All the power is on the side of the woke, okay? You've got corporations being basically attacked by the mob. You've got politicians, the Democrats who are in charge of the government, telling you that this woke stuff is right. You've got the news media, which are massive corporations, telling you this is right. And yet they call themselves, all the centers of power on the side of the woke, and yet the woke call themselves the resistance. So you have to ask yourself, who are they resisting? Well, they're resisting the people. And that is a clue that you are in an empire of lies. That is a clue that you're in an atmosphere of lies when all the powerful people are telling you that they are the resistance, that they're standing up for freedom. You can almost bet your bottom dollar that that is an atmosphere of lies. When everybody is shouting, crucify him, that's a good time to stop and think, whoa, just a minute here, just a minute. If all the powerful people want this guy dead, if all the powerful people want this truth extinguished, what is going on? And the thing about this, I come down pretty hard on Donald Trump for the way he acted after the election. And I stand by that because as I said at the time, I think he screwed the pooch. And the way I think he screwed the pooch is allowing lawyers who are out of control to make grandiose claims about the kind of conspiracy theory fraud that was going on while making people overlook the obvious things that were happening, right? The obvious things that were happening, the rule changes in states. This is what Jenna Ellis was talking about, by the way. Our friend Jenna Ellis was constantly harping on this while she was being drowned out by people talking about Dominion voting machines and things that couldn't be proved and couldn't be pointed at all. But the rules were changed in many states in defiance of the Constitution. And if they hadn't done that, the mail-in votes, which they're trying to contain and control, they would have played a much smaller role in the election. Mail-in votes that the New York Times before this election had often cited as a possible source of fraud. If it weren't for the fact of the mainstream media and social media, a lot more people would have heard about the Hunter Biden laptop story, which is being covered now. NPR just apologized for saying this. And remember, the Hunter Biden laptop story, 50 retired intelligence officials, right, said that the Hunter Biden laptop story was Russian disinformation. The intelligence community has been jerking the chain of the media in order to sell their goods, their point of view, and the media has been quoting them without any kind of, guidance or suspicion at all. They've been going against the old saying that you should check out everything. Don't trust anybody, not even your mother if you're a journalist. And so then you go and you watch the way on say, CNN, a left-wing, not a left-wing outlet, it's a government outlet. These are people being run by the power. All this resistance, these speaking truth to power, they are the power. They are the corporations. They are the government. They are the media. They are those people. They're not speaking truth to power. They're the power. That's how you know. That's how you know that you're surrounded by lies. I just want to give you one good example of Michael Waltz, a congressman from Florida. He goes on CNN and listen to the question. The question is basically trying to corner him into saying, Trump was, lost the election. And Walsh just corrects her very quickly. This is the way you have to handle the media. It's a great example of how it's done.
So is it fair to say that you accept Joe Biden won the presidency?
Well, I think a number of officials, unelected officials in a number of states changed the rules just months before the election that in many ways tilted the election in Democrats' favors. But at the end of the day, What makes America different than so many places I've fought in around the world is a peaceful transfer of power. I think those issues still need to be addressed. Many states are addressing them now. What I keep asking is, if many Democrats say the elections were just fine, no issues, then why do we have H.R. 1,
Wait,
the
hold
Democrats'
on.
number
Before we
one
get to that
priority,
talking
moving
point,
through the House?
But I just want to get clarity on the question I asked you. There's this basic truth that American voters fairly and squarely put Joe Biden in the White House, yes or no?
President Biden is the president of the United States. He's the commander-in-chief.
Did he
we can
win
only
fairly
have
and
one.
squarely?
I think there are real issues with the election, but he won it.
That's an amazing interview. Yes or no? What the hell is she talking about? The truth is never yes or no. The truth is always nuanced. But obviously what he was talking about was getting the truth past that wall of lies. This is the thing. It's the misattribution of values. That's why I started with V for Vendetta. It's telling you that the anarchists are the good guys, the democracy is bad, that the terrorists are the good guys, that peaceful negotiation and change is bad. It's telling you that Christianity is the bad guy, but a religion that basically wants a theocracy in place is the good guys. The whole thing is, behind the mask of V is not the Vox Populi. It's the voice of the vicious and vengeful victors of an unverifiable vote.